And now we turn to Mr. Tim Graney for his response.
I was going the other way. Are we going to send 12 million people home tomorrow? If we get that legislation passed through Congress, I'd be amazed. So let's start enforcing some laws that we already have on our books, and E-Verify is one of them. Let's strengthen the other laws that may not be there. Those that have been here less than a year, sorry, you need to go home. Those that have been here longer, you need to register, you pay a fine, pay a penalty. You broke the law, we're a nation of laws. You're going to pay a penalty if you want to stay here. If not, go home. If you've been convicted of a crime, it's time to go home. But most importantly, people that come here in search of the American dream, that's what many of our forefathers came here for, was in search of the American dream. They brought their homeland traditions with them, and they may have kept them in their home or their place of worship. But when they stepped out on the streets of America, they wanted to be an American. And they knew that learning the English language was the stepping stone to success in America. And it's about time we make the English language the national language in our great land. It's not only for a purpose of unity, but also for business costs. People are doing double things in the business. If you can't read and write, speak English, it's time you do. To file to be on the ballot, it was a bilingual form. Why on earth is that a bilingual form? If you cannot read and write, speak English, how can you possibly represent the citizens of the United States? It is time we ask those that want to come here and search the American dream to please do it, but do it the way our forefathers did and assimilate into our society. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Graney. We now turn to Congressman Ron Paul.
I think it should go without saying, if something's illegal, we shouldn't permit it. So that should be settled. We shouldn't have illegal immigration. But what encourages it, I think the welfare state does. The welfare state here, as well as providing welfare for illegal immigrants. And this is what's bankrupted so many hospitals and school districts, because illegals come over and you, the taxpayer, have to pay for the education as well as their medical care. I've introduced legislation that would abolish the whole concept of federal mandates. I happen to still believe that the state should run these things and not have federal mandates from the federal government. But the welfare system also works at home. I know we want to put all the blame on the illegal immigrants, but believe me, the system here at home encourages some of our American citizens not to take the jobs that are available, because it's actually pretty easy to get the welfare and jobs go begging. Half of the people that come to my office say, don't let the illegals in. The other half, especially when the economy is doing better, it was the business people saying, we need workers, and we still have some of that. So if the welfare system, big government, is at fault so often. If we had a truly free, prosperous market, I'll tell you what, there would probably be a demand for labor, and it would be quite right for us to be generous with work permits. Not illegal immigration, but let them come in and fulfill the role. They wouldn't have the incentive to bring their families. So a free market and a constitutional government would go a long way to solving this problem.
All right, thank you, Congressman Paul. And for the final response to this question, we turn to Mr. John Gay.
The problem is people use questions to try to confuse us and confound us. We've been bound and gagged with political correctness. We've been divided by diversity. And we've got so much tolerance that the wheels are coming off the wagon. Now, we as Americans are compassionate, caring people. And we care about people, but we don't want the Taliban and the drug dealers and the other terrorists coming across our borders. You also don't reward someone for breaking the law. If someone breaks into a bank, you don't say, hey, while you're here, take a few samples. You say, no, go outside of the bank, come back in legally, open an account, make a deposit, and then you can participate. So those that are here illegally should not be allowed to stay and become a citizen ever in their lifetime. I believe if someone comes into this country illegally, and if we don't have the heart, it's too hard for us to send them back to their country. They've been here 10, 20 years, working, trying to provide for their family. I could see where we could offer them a guest program where we say, you are a guest, but you can never be a citizen. You can never vote. You, for the rest of your life, are not going to be a citizen unless you self-deport, go back to your home country, and come back in legally. Open an account, and then you can participate. But we're not going to reward people for breaking the law. So but the left uses questions to divide us. They say we're racist or intolerant, and that is simply not the truth. We just care about our nation.
All right, thank you, Mr. Gay. You know, one of the unique things about the American experiment, I'm a bit of a European mutt myself, is that if I moved, you know, I love a lot of countries, love international travel, but if I went and lived in Germany for, say, 20, 30, 40 years, do you think they would consider me a German? No. But, you know, if I went over and lived in France for a while, do you think they'd consider me French? Even if I spoke perfect, fluent French, they would not consider me French. And yet, anybody can come here, and as long as they embrace the American dream, they are considered Americans. And that is something that is very unique about this country and something that I love about this country, and just wanted to take that opportunity to say that. We got somebody who wants to take their 30 seconds. Mr. Graney, you got your 30 seconds.
You know, the Congress mentioned that he's put forth legislation for this or that. At the end of the day, he's put forth a lot of legislation in the last 12 years, over 300 pieces. Matter of fact is, though, in order to get legislation done in Washington, you must work with the other 434 that are up there with you and convince them that these are good ideas to go forward. In the last 12 years, he's only had 3 of those get out of committee and 1 enacted. That's not effective representation. We need new representation in the district.
All right. And I'm not surprised that Congressman Paul wants one of his 30 seconds right here. Congressman Paul, you got 30 seconds.
That whole comment's based on the fact that he likes the way the country's going. If you play ball and do what they do, then you can do that and get some bills passed. But it takes time to change the course of history and to change the course this country's been on for so many years. And take, for instance, the understanding about the Federal Reserve System, the importance of auditing the Federal Reserve System. We have 317 people on that bill. It's bipartisan, and it's already passed the House of Representatives. That's a lot more important than having a bill that you work with the establishment and get it passed and say, oh, look at me, I passed 5 bills.
Thank you, Congressman. All right. Now we turn to our next question. Uh-oh, it's kind of big here. All right, hang with me. If you can't read it, I'll read it. Don't worry. Congress recently extended the U.S. debt limit to the low price of $14.3 trillion. That's right. Hey, but it's less than 14.4. President Obama recently submitted a $3.8 billion budget. Woo! I'm sorry. Yeah, it should say trillion. Yeah, $1 billion here, $1 billion there. Come on. Because our debt will only exceed $20 trillion by 2020. Hey, that's not bad. That's fiscal responsibility. There seems to be no end in sight to the river of red ink coming out of Washington. How would you propose to balance our federal budget and get our financial house in order? We turn to you, Mr. John Gay.
I believe we can cut the budget, the federal budget, by at least half. But it's going to take not just one person going up there. It's going to take you, the people of this district, we, the people of the United States, to say, we have had enough. We're not going to keep spending the red ink. Thank you. Somebody has got to have the intestinal fortitude and the moral compass to stand up against this. And I appreciate what Dr. Paul has done all these years. I just believe I can be more effective. I told him from day one, I'm not running against him, I'm running for the people. And so somebody needs to go up there and tell these people we have got to make hard decisions. Just because you make a budget does not mean you have the money for the budget. You have to have a budget that we can live within our means. If we borrow money on a credit card, that does not mean we can take a better vacation. We have to pay for the essentials that are outlined in Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, and not just be funding every little Snell darter study there is. We've got to cut back. And it's going to take us, we the people. I'm so excited because I believe the Tea Parties, the 9/12 groups, all these conservative groups are standing up, and for once we're awake. And I applaud the Tea Party group for their logo, the Sleeping America, Sleeping Liberty. And it's time to wake up, America. Thank you.
And for his response to this question, Congressman Ron Paul.
The debt is obviously a very, very serious problem. And unless we get it under control, we're going to have a dollar crisis, a currency crisis. We've already had a financial crisis, but just printing the money to pay these bills is devastating. And it's real hard to get things in check as long as we endorse the idea of a secret bank that can print money out of thin air. Everything has to be cut. Everything. And if we really had a good rule, we could say, well, if you're 10% over budget, cut 10%, cut it across the board. But at the rate we're going now, we're going to spend ourselves into oblivion, and this is going to be a major, major crisis for us. But we first have to realize that it is the attitude of the people, what they think the role of government should be. If you think we should have the welfare state, fine. But if you think we should run the world and have troops in 140 countries, have bases in 700 bases overseas, and don't think that we can't cut a $1 trillion empire around the world, it doesn't even contribute to our national defense. It makes us in greater danger because we're overseas doing these things. It's not defense. It's what Eisenhower called it, a military-industrial complex who's running the show now. And there are too many people who think that the military budget is sacred and it creates jobs. War never creates a good economy. We need to cut back every single thing we're doing up in Washington.
All right, thank you.